The blackness of space stretched in every direction, endless and cold. Commander Elias Ward floated at the edge of consciousness, his starfighter broken and burning after the battle. Sparks lit the ruined cockpit and alarms screamed in his ears. He tried to move, but pain stabbed through his ribs and shoulder. Blood dripped across his visor. His breath came in ragged gasps. He knew he was dying. The fight against the Zithari had been short and brutal. The enemy ships were faster, stronger, and armed with weapons far beyond anything humans had yet built. His squadron had been wiped out within minutes. Only Elias had lasted longer, weaving his battered fighter through fire, buying time for the civilian convoy to jump to safety. But even he could not hold forever. When the final plasma blast tore through his engine, the void swallowed his ship whole. His systems failed. His body screamed. And then, silence. The last thing he saw before blacking out was the cold silver hull of a Zithari vessel moving toward him like a predator closing its jaws. He awoke not in the wreck, but inside a strange room. The air was heavy and cold with a faint metallic taste. Pale light poured down from crystal rods set into the ceiling. The walls were smooth, gray, and alive with faintly pulsing veins of blue energy. Elias blinked hard. His body felt like fire and ice at the same time. He tried to sit up, but straps held him down on a hard platform. His vision swam, but he saw tall figures moving in the shadows. The Zithari. He had studied their images before the war. They were humanoid in shape, but taller, thinner, with long arms and gray-blue skin that seemed almost translucent under the lights. Their eyes were large, faceted like gemstones, and held no warmth. One of them leaned over him, observing him as though he were a broken tool. Its voice was sharp, cold, layered like metal scraping on metal. Human, weak flesh. Broken vessel. Pointless to save. Elias forced a grin despite the blood on his lips. Nice to meet you too. The Zithari ignored him. They turned and spoke in their strange tongue to one another. Elias couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Disgust, dismissal, and boredom. To them, he was not a warrior, just a dying animal. Finally, one of them waved a hand. Another figure stepped forward. She was different, smaller than the others, though still taller than Elias. She moved with a quiet grace. Her eyes glowed faintly gold instead of silver blue. Instead of armor, she wore flowing garments of pale green, traced with shifting patterns of light. She carried no weapon, only a small crystalline staff. The others addressed her in sharp tones. She bowed her head slightly, then turned toward Elias. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, not with pity, not with disgust. Something else, curiosity. She stepped closer. Her voice was softer than the others, but still carried that alien resonance. Close your eyes, human. Elias frowned. Why? Planning to put me down like a dog? Her head tilted. You bleed. You will die. My task is to heal, nothing more. He let out a weak chuckle. Healing, huh? Well, that's a first. Usually your people just shoot first and, actually, they just shoot, period. The woman did not answer. Instead, she raised her hand and the crystal staff glowed faintly. Close your eyes, she repeated, more softly this time. Against his instincts, Elias obeyed. A strange warmth spread across his body. At first, it felt like fire licking through his wounds. He gritted his teeth, expecting the pain to worsen. But then, slowly, it shifted. The fire turned into a steady, pulsing rhythm, like a second heartbeat moving in time with his own. He felt pressure fade from his chest. The stabbing pain in his ribs dulled. His ragged breathing steadied, and then something stranger happened. He felt her, not just her touch, something deeper, a presence brushing against his thoughts. Not words, not clear images, but emotions, impressions, echoes of curiosity, hesitation, and something else he couldn't name. Elias forced a laugh, though it came out weak and shaky. This isn't exactly doctor-patient confidentiality, is it? For the first time, he saw her expression flicker. Her golden eyes widened slightly. The glow from her staff wavered. You speak back, she murmured. Yeah, I tend to do that, Elias whispered. Annoys the hell out of most people. She drew back slightly, unsettled. Her hands trembled for just a moment before steadying again. No other species had ever resisted the passivity of the healing resonance. To the Zithari, healing was a one-way act, energy flowing from healer to subject. But here, with this human, the current shifted both ways. His mind pushed back. His spirit was not silent. The healer, Sarai, her name unspoken but real, felt her composure crack. She had healed hundreds before. Soldiers, elders, even animals. They had all been the same. Quiet, accepting, fading or recovering with no trace of will. But this human, he was different. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time lost meaning inside the strange rhythm of healing. At last, Sarai withdrew her hand. The glow faded. Elias opened his eyes again, blinking at the harsh light. He could breathe more easily now. His wounds had stopped bleeding. Strength, faint but real, returned to his limbs. "Well," he rasped, "I've had worse hospital visits." Sarai studied him with a mix of calculation and unease. Her people expected him to die soon anyway. They had given her the task not out of kindness but out of indifference. If he lived, fine. If not, it proved their point. But now, looking at him, she was not so sure. He was supposed to be fragile, temporary, yet even half dead. He had fought her resonance, had pushed back with humor, with defiance, with life. She found herself asking a question she should not. What kind of species refuses to die so stubbornly? The answer unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. The others Athari returned, speaking in their cold voices. Elias couldn't understand the words, but he understood the way they looked at him. He was prey, a subject, a tool to be examined, then discarded. Sarai bowed her head slightly and gave her report. "The human lives." The commander hissed, displeased. "Pointless. Weakness should be allowed to fade." Sarai hesitated. Then she said something she had never said before. "Perhaps weakness is not what this is." The commander's gaze sharpened, icy and cruel. "You question doctrine?" Sarai lowered her eyes quickly, hiding the turmoil inside her. "No, Commander, only observing." The commander turned away with a dismissive gesture. "Continue your observations. When he breaks, dissect what remains." Elias caught the look in Sarai's eyes then. For just a moment, the mask slipped. He saw not cruelty, not indifference, but doubt. And in that tiny flicker of doubt, he saw hope. That night, if it could be called night aboard an alien vessel, Elias lay awake on the cold platform. His body still ached, but he was alive. Barely. He thought about his squadron, about the people he had failed to save, about the war humanity might already be losing. And yet, he smiled. Because somewhere in the enemy's camp he had found a crack in their perfect armor. A single healer, curious enough to see him not as an animal, but as something else, something more. As his eyes drifted shut, he whispered to himself, "They think we're weak. They have no idea." The cold chamber was silent except for the steady hum of alien machines. Commander Elias Ward lay on the hard platform, staring at the ceiling. His wounds were closed, but pain still pulsed deep in his body. Every breath reminded him he was far from safe. Across the room, Sarai stood with her staff resting lightly in her hands. The golden glow in her eyes dimmed and brightened as she watched him. She had been ordered to monitor his recovery, though the commanders expected him to collapse soon. To them, a human's survival was a temporary curiosity, but Elias was not collapsing. He turned his head slightly and forced a crooked grin. "You're still here, huh? I thought you'd patch me up and run off." Sarai tilted her head. Her voice was calm, but something restless moved beneath it. "You should not speak so much. Your body is fragile," Elias chuckled weakly. "Fragile, yeah. That's one word for it. But I'm still alive, aren't I?" She studied him for a long moment. Then she said almost to herself, "Alive, when you should not be." Later, when the others had left the chamber, Sarai approached him again. She placed her hand lightly near his chest. The staff glowed faintly. "Close your eyes, human," she whispered. Elias sighed. "Back to that again. You really like saying it, don't you?" "It is the phrase of my order," she answered. "A reminder to let go of fear. Healing requires stillness," he smirked. "Stillness has never been my style." Despite herself, Sarai's lips curved almost, not quite, into the smallest ghost of a smile. She pressed her hand more firmly, and once again the strange warmth spread through his body. But this time she felt it sooner. The push, the resistance, the spark of his mind brushing against hers. Most patients faded into silence during resonance, their thoughts quiet, their spirits dim. But not Elias. His mind shone like a flame, stubborn and unyielding. Sarai stiffened. "You are doing it again." "Doing what?" Elias murmured, his eyes still closed, pushing back. He let out a low laugh. That's humans for you. We don't sit quiet when someone pokes around in our head. This is not supposed to be possible, she whispered. The resonance is one way. Energy flows from me to you. You are interfering. Elias opened one eye and looked at her. Maybe your people just never tried it on a human before. Sarai's golden eyes narrowed slightly. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to insist that humans were nothing special, just another short-lived species destined to burn out. But deep inside, she felt the truth pressing against her. He was different. Over the next few cycles, Sarai returned again and again to tend his wounds. Each time, Elias met her with words, humor, or stubborn silence. Each time, the resonance touched something inside her. He told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests, about rain on rooftops and laughter in crowded streets. He painted pictures with simple words that made her pause, her healing energy flickering as her mind tried to imagine a world so alive. You have fought many wars, she said once, her voice carrying both judgment and curiosity. Too many, Elias admitted, but we always rebuild. No matter what happens, we stand back up. Sarai's hands hesitated as she worked. Why? Why stand when it is easier to fall? Because falling means giving up, Elias said softly, and that's the one thing humans don't do. For the first time in her life, Sarai began to question her people's teachings. The Zathari believed in control, in perfection, in the cold superiority of their order. Emotion was weakness. Attachment was dangerous. Curiosity was tolerated but never encouraged. Yet every time she touched the human, she felt his willpower flowing back into her, feeding the resonance instead of draining it. He should have been a burden. Instead, he was a storm. She caught herself thinking about him even outside the healing chamber. His jokes, his stubborn eyes, the strange warmth of his presence. She told herself it was only because he was unusual, because she had never felt this response before. But deep down she knew it was more. One cycle, while Sarai was away, the commanders came to see him. Elias lay strapped down, too weak to resist. The commander who had spoken before leaned close, his faceted eyes glinting with cold light. Human, he said in broken words of Elias's language, you are nothing, yet you do not die. Why? Elias stared back with a tired grin. Guess you'll just have to keep watching. The commander hissed in annoyance and struck him across the face with a long, thin hand. Pain flared, but Elias laughed anyway. That laugh echoed through the chamber long after the commanders left. When Sarai returned, she saw the mark on his face. Her hands trembled as she reached for her staff. They struck you? She said quietly. Elias shrugged, though it hurt. They don't like what they can't understand. Sarai looked at him for a long time. Then she whispered, Nor do I. But the difference was clear. She wanted to understand. During the next healing session, something changed. As the resonance flowed, Elias pushed back harder, not with force but with stories. He thought of his squadron, of friends lost in the battle. He remembered their laughter before the fight, their bravery in the final moments. Those memories poured into the resonance. Sarai felt them, raw, unfiltered, alive. She gasped, staggering slightly as images filled her mind. Young men and women smiling despite danger, their courage shining brighter than fear. She pulled her hand back sharply. Stop, this is too much. Elias opened his eyes. What did you see? Sarai hesitated. Her voice was unsteady. Memories, feelings, things that should not pass through resonance. He studied her carefully. Then you know, we're not just animals. We fight, we love. We don't quit, even when everything says we should. Her golden eyes met his. For the first time, she could not look away. The commanders noticed her hesitation. They whispered among themselves, accusing her of wasting energy on a doomed subject. Some called her contaminated by human weakness. Sarai ignored them. She told herself it was duty, that she only healed him because he was her task. But deep inside she knew the truth. She wanted him to live. She wanted to see what else this strange, stubborn human could do. That night when she returned alone to check on him, Elias looked up and gave her a faint smile. You're different from the others, he said quietly. Sarai froze. Different? Yeah, they look at me like I'm already dead. You don't. Her throat tightened, though she tried to keep her voice calm. Perhaps I am foolish, Elias shook his head. No, you're curious. That's not foolish. That's human. For a long moment they just stared at each other, alien and human, healer and prisoner. The silence was heavy but not empty. Something unspoken passed between them, stronger than words, and though Sarai would not admit it, not to herself, not yet, her heart stirred in a way it never had before. Outside the chamber, the Zathari commanders prepared new orders. The human would not last much longer, they believed. When he broke, they would tear him apart, study his body, and prove once and for all that humanity was nothing but fragile noise in the galaxy. But Sarai was beginning to wonder if they were wrong, because every time she placed her hand on his chest and whispered, "Close your eyes, human," she felt not silence but fire. The Zathari outpost floated in silence among the stars, a cold fortress built from metal and crystal. Inside its walls, Elias Ward struggled each day to keep his strength. His body was healing, yes, but the real battle was in his spirit. He was a prisoner. His captors wanted him to fail, to give up, to break. But Elias refused. Every time he opened his eyes, every time he spoke, every time he smiled through pain, it was a small act of rebellion. He knew the Zathari hated it, and that gave him strength. Sarai returned to him often, always carrying her staff, always whispering the same words. "Close your eyes. Human." At first, Elias had mocked the phrase, but now it had become part of their strange connection. When she said it, he obeyed, not because she ordered him, but because he trusted her. And each time, when her resonance touched him, his mind pushed back. She felt his memories, his stubbornness, his humor, his pain, and each time she found herself changed a little more. The golden glow of her eyes grew warmer whenever she worked on him. She began asking questions she had never dared to ask before. "What is laughter?" she asked once, her voice curious. Elias blinked at her. "Laughter? You've never laughed?" "It is not part of us," she said. "We do not waste energy on noise," Elias smirked. "Noise? Lady, laughter's what keeps us alive. When everything hurts, when the world's falling apart, sometimes the only thing you can do is laugh." Sarai tilted her head. "Strange." "Maybe," Elias said softly, "but it's ours." She thought about his words long after she left his chamber. The commanders grew impatient. They entered one cycle, their tall frames looming over the human. Elias lay strapped down, but his eyes were sharp, unbroken. "This creature resists decay," one commander said coldly. "Unnatural, or useless," another hissed. "If it will not break, it has no value." Elias chuckled from the platform. "Glad to know I'm keeping you up at night." The commander turned his faceted eyes toward him. "You jest in chains. You are prey. We could end you in a breath. Then why don't you?" Elias shot back, his grin sharp despite the pain. "Because you're afraid of what you'll see if you do." The room grew colder. The commanders hissed, but they did not strike him this time. Instead, they turned to Sarai. "Continue your task," they ordered. "But know this. If the human survival begins to weaken you, we will remove him permanently." Sarai bowed her head, hiding the spark of anger in her chest. When they were gone, Elias let out a slow breath. "They don't like me much." Sarai stood silently for a moment, then said, "You provoke them on purpose." "Of course," Elias said. "Bullies hate being laughed at. And your people, sorry to say, are the biggest bullies in the galaxy." She gave him a sharp look, but there was no true anger in it. "Only conflict. You should be silent," she said quietly. "It is safer." "Safe isn't living," Elias replied. "If I stay quiet, they win. And I don't plan on letting them win." The next time Sarai placed her hand on his chest, she felt his defiance more strongly than ever. It surged into her like fire. Memories came. Images of humans rebuilding shattered cities, of soldiers holding the line, of families laughing even in the ruins of war. Her breath caught. She pulled back, trembling. "This is impossible," she whispered. "You give strength back." "No species does this." Elias smiled faintly. "Guess you've never met humans before." "Why are you like this?" she asked. Her voice trembled in a way she did not understand. "Why do you stand when you should fall?" Elias's eyes softened. "Because if we fall and stay down, everything we love dies with us. We fight, we rise, we keep going. Not because it's easy, but because someone has to." The words cut deeper than he knew. Sarai had been taught her whole life that strength meant control, that perfection was found in silence and obedience. Yet here was a fragile human bound and broken, speaking as though he were the stronger one, and part of her believed him. Days passed. The bond between them grew stronger. Elias grew healthier under her care, though still weak compared to his old self. Sarai grew restless, her golden eyes haunted by thoughts she could not share. Once, while they sat in silence, Elias asked, "Do you ever wonder if your people are wrong?" Sarai stiffened. "Wrong? Yeah, all this talk about superiority, perfection, control. Do you ever feel like maybe that's just fear dressed up fancy?" She looked away. "We do not fear," Elias chuckled softly. "Then why are they so afraid of me?" The word struck deep. Sarai had no answer. One cycle, the resonance went further than before. As her hand glowed against his chest, Elias thought about his squadron again, about the last moments, about the sacrifice they made. He thought of the civilians who escaped because of them. He thought of duty, of honor, of the cost of survival. Those memories spilled into the resonance like a flood. Sarai staggered, clutching her staff as his emotions filled her. Grief, pride, pain, and hope all tangled together. Tears, something she had never shed before, pricked at her eyes. She gasped and pulled back. "What was that?" she whispered. "My people," Elias said softly. "My friends. We died so others could live. That's humanity. That's what we are." Sarai stared at him. For the first time in her life, her chest ached with something she could not name. "You should not share such things," she whispered, but her voice shook. "Maybe," Elias said, "but if I don't, you'll never understand us." The commanders began to notice changes in Sarai. She was slower to respond to orders. Her reports lacked the cold efficiency they expected. Rumors spread among the soldiers. The healer was different now. Contaminated. One night, another healer confronted her. "You linger with the human too long," he said coldly. "He infects your mind," Sarai's jaw tightened. "I do only what is required." "You deceive yourself," he hissed. "Careful, Sarai. Curiosity is a dangerous disease." When he left, Sarai stood alone, trembling. For the first time she realized she was afraid, not of punishment, but of losing the strange flame the human had lit inside her. Back in the chamber, Elias saw the shadow in her eyes. "They're watching you," he said quietly. "They always watch," Sarai replied. "They don't like that you're starting to see me as, well, as me." Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she whispered, "Perhaps they are right. Perhaps you are dangerous." Elias smiled faintly. "Good, then they should be afraid." That night, as Sarai prepared to leave, Elias called out to her. "Hey, Sarai." She paused. He had never spoken her name before, though she had never given it. She turned slowly. "How do you know my name?" Elias shrugged. "I don't, I just felt it." In the resonance, for the first time, her composure truly broke. Her golden eyes widened and she whispered, "This is not possible." Elias's grin was tired but real. "A lot of things about humans aren't possible, until we do them." Sarai stood frozen in the doorway, her heart racing. The chamber was quiet, but the air felt heavy. Commander Elias Ward lay on the platform, his body stronger than it had been in days. His wounds were healing faster thanks to Sarai's careful care, yet he knew he was still a prisoner. The Zathari would not keep him alive forever, not if he became inconvenient. He could feel it in the way they whispered behind his back, in the way their eyes lingered on him with suspicion. But for the first time, he did not feel helpless. Sarai entered, her golden eyes glowing softly. Her hands trembled slightly as she rested them on his chest. "Close your eyes, human," she whispered. Elias smiled faintly. "I'm ready." The warmth flowed through him, but this time it felt stronger, sharper, as if her energy had changed. Sarai's own pulse seemed to sync with his, each beat carrying more than healing. It carried intention, focus, even defiance. He pushed back harder than ever. The resistance was not rude, not chaotic, it was deliberate. He wanted her to see, to understand that humans were not passive, that their spirit could resist even when trapped. Sarai gasped as the resonance surged through her. She had never felt anything like this. Her body shook. Her mind burned. And yet she felt alive. The alarms blared suddenly, breaking the silence. The Zathari commanders appeared at the chamber entrance, their faceted eyes sharp and cold. "Sarai," one of them hissed. "What are you doing?" The healer froze, caught between duty and something stronger she could not ignore. Elias raised his head, coughing slightly. "Guess they don't like my bedtime stories," he muttered. You are wasting energy, the commander said sharply. Remove him. Now. Sarai looked at him, at the human who had fought against every rule, every expectation, every ounce of weakness, and she realized she could not. She could not obey. No, she said firmly. I will not. The commanders recoiled. You dare, I dare, she repeated, her voice steady, her hands glowing with golden light. He lives, not because he is weak, not because he is mine to control. He lives because he will not break. Elias stared at her stunned. He had not expected her to choose him, not against her people. Yet there she stood, defying the cold hierarchy of the Zathari. Good, he whispered, a faint smile on his lips. Now let's get out of here. Escape was not simple. The chamber doors were locked with alien mechanisms, and Zathari soldiers were stationed in every corridor. Elias struggled against his restraints, but Sarai's hands glowed, and the bonds of energy melted under her focus. Once free, they moved through the cold halls, silent but tense. Sarai guided him, her knowledge of the station's design invaluable. Each step they took, they could hear the echoes of pursuit. Shouts in the alien tongue, the heavy steps of armored soldiers, the hum of energy weapons charging. You lead? Elias asked softly. No, Sarai said. You do, I only follow, he nodded. That was exactly what he wanted. Humans thrived on choice, on freedom, on defiance, and now he would lead her through the unknown. As they moved deeper into the station, Elias felt the strength returning to him in waves. The healing had not only repaired his body, it had amplified it. Every step was steadier, every breath surer. You've given me more than just life, he said quietly. And you have given me something I never knew I wanted, Sarai replied, though her words were soft, almost trembling. They rounded a corner and froze. A group of Zathari soldiers blocked the corridor. Their weapons hummed, aimed directly at the human who had defied death. Elias turned to Sarai. Your move. Her hands glowed brighter. She placed them on his chest. The resonance flared, bright and fierce, coursing through him and then out into the corridor. The soldiers froze, their bodies stiffening as the energy pulsed over them. It was not harmful, they were not killed, but it stunned them, disrupted their focus, and created a window for escape. Run, Elias shouted. They sprinted down the hall, weaving through shadows, dodging patrols. Each step carried the weight of danger, yet every step strengthened the bond between them. Sarai's powers had grown stronger under his resistance, and Elias's will had grown sharper under her guidance. It was a strange, perfect balance, two beings, human and alien, defying the impossible together. They reached a maintenance bay where a small shuttle waited. Elias recognized it as a scout ship, unarmed but fast. This will do, he said. Sarai hesitated. Once we leave, you will return to your people. You will be hunted, Elias shook his head. No, I'll return to my people, yes, but not to be captured again. I survived because I refuse to be owned, and you're coming with me if you choose. Her golden eyes met his. I do not know if I can survive outside my people. You don't have to, he said gently. You just have to choose. The weight of the decision pressed on her. If she stayed, she would follow orders, obey the hierarchy, and never question the doctrine that had ruled her life. If she left, she would be hunted, exiled, perhaps even destroyed. And yet for the first time she felt something stronger than fear. Purpose. I choose, she whispered. The shuttle roared to life. The engines hummed, the lights flickered, and the bay doors opened to the void of space. Zathari alarms blared behind them. Soldiers scrambled, weapons firing, but Elias maneuvered expertly. The ship was small, agile, and he pushed it to its limits. Sarai sat beside him, gripping the console, her hands glowing faintly. You are reckless, she said, though there was no real scolding in her voice. Better reckless than dead, Elias replied with a grin. They broke through the bay doors, into the blackness of space. The stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and indifferent yet full of possibility. Behind them, the alarms and flashes of Zathari weapons faded. Ahead, the unknown waited. Elias felt the pulse of life in his chest, strong and steady. Sarai's hands glowed softly beside him, her presence steadying him, supporting him, amplifying him. They had escaped, but the war was far from over. Yet Elias did not fear. Humans never did. Hours later, as the shuttle drifted through the emptiness between stars, Elias looked at Sarai. You know, he said softly, most humans never get a chance to change an alien's heart. Her eyes met his, warm and conflicted. And yet here we are. Elias smiled faintly. We'll need more than luck to survive. But somehow I think we'll manage. Humanity always does. Sarai's golden eyes glimmered. Perhaps your people are stronger than I imagined. Stronger? He asked. Yes, she said. Not because of weapons. Not because of numbers. Because of your spirit, your will, your refusal to be broken. You remind me that life is not meant to be obeyed, it is meant to be lived. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Then maybe I've already won, even if the galaxy thinks otherwise. She smiled faintly, for the first time free from the constraints of doctrine. Perhaps you have. The shuttle moved onward, carrying human and alien alike into the unknown. Together they were stronger than any one of them alone. And somewhere in the dark a spark of rebellion had begun, not just against the Zathari, but against the very idea that humanity could ever be underestimated. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of danger, full of opportunity, and for the first time in her life, Sarai felt the thrill of choosing her own path. Elias reached over and lightly touched her hand. Close your eyes, human, she whispered softly, echoing the words that had first begun their bond. The shuttle drifted silently through the void, carrying its two unlikely passengers farther from the Zathari outpost with every second. Outside, stars glittered coldly, indifferent to the struggles of life within the small vessel. Yet inside, the atmosphere was warm with tension, relief, and a fragile spark of hope. Elias Ward leaned back against the hull, his chest still pulsing with the energy Sarai had gifted him. The pain of his previous injuries lingered faintly, but it no longer threatened to slow him. He could feel the resonance between them, her energy weaving with his own, steadying him, strengthening him, guiding him. Sarai sat at the console, hands resting lightly on the glowing panels. Her golden eyes were distant, thoughtful, haunted, yet alive in a way she had never known before. She had left her people behind. She had defied them, broken rules she had followed all her life, and she had no idea what would come next. Do you ever stop surprising me? Elias asked quietly, glancing at her. She tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Do humans ever stop being persistent? Apparently not, he replied with a tired grin. Days passed as they navigated the empty reaches between star systems. Elias worked to repair the shuttle's damaged systems while Sarai monitored their path, her knowledge of alien technology proving invaluable. The more they worked together, the more the bond between them grew. Their relationship was strange, alien in every sense, yet natural in its trust and reliance. One evening, as the shuttle coasted past a distant gas giant, Elias looked at Sarai and said softly, You know, I've survived a lot in my life. Battles, accidents, hunger, storms. But I've never met anyone like you. Her eyes met his. And I have never met anyone like you, a human. So fragile yet unbreakable. Elias chuckled softly. That's us. We're not special because of strength or size. We're special because we refuse to break, even when everything says we should. Sarai considered this, watching him closely. Your people are different than anything I imagined. I thought all species were ruled by reason, by logic. But humans are ruled by will. Elias nodded. Will and heart. Sometimes stubbornness, too. Perhaps that is why you survive, she murmured. Suddenly alarms blared across the shuttle. Red lights flashed, Elias's eyes narrowed. Zathari? Sarai checked the sensors. No, not exactly. Something else. Debris. A patrol scanning the area. Elias stood, hands moving over the controls with calm precision. Whatever it is, we can handle it. Stay with me. The shuttle moved through the asteroid field, weaving between rocky masses with precision. The debris threatened to crush them at every turn, but Elias's mind stayed sharp, anticipating each obstacle. Sarai's hands glowed faintly, reinforcing the ship's shields with her energy. Every movement, every calculation, every pulse of her resonance kept them alive. When they finally broke free from the field, Elias exhaled deeply. See, told you humans always find a way? Sarai smiled faintly. And yet, I could not have done it without you. Elias reached over and lightly touched her hand. Nor I without you. We're stronger together. That's something your people don't understand. She looked at him, her expression softening. They never could. They fear what they cannot control, and you cannot be controlled. He gave a faint, tired grin. Exactly. Weeks passed. They traveled through systems far from the front lines, making their way toward a small human outpost that had survived the war. Along the way, Elias shared stories of Earth, of humanity's history, of triumphs and failures alike. Sarai listened, absorbing every detail. You fight not because you are perfect, she said one night, watching him repair the shuttle's engine. You fight because you care, because you love life and all it contains, no matter how fragile it may be. Elias paused, wiping grease from his hands. That's right. It's not the strongest who survive. It's the ones who refuse to give up, the ones who keep moving, keep hoping, keep living. Her eyes glimmered with awe. I have seen humans die. I have seen suffering, and yet I have never seen such determination, such courage. You awakened something in me, something I cannot ignore. Elias's gaze softened. And you awakened something in me too, something I never knew I needed. Trust, courage, hope. That's what humans do. We survive and we inspire others to survive as well. Sarai's hand brushed against his. The warmth was more than physical. It carried understanding, connection, and a bond that neither of them had anticipated. As they approached the human outpost, a quiet anxiety settled over them. The station was barely operational, a small cluster of buildings floating above a barren planet. Sensors showed no immediate threats, yet both of them knew the Zathari would not forget Elias. He had survived their outpost, defied their commanders, and escaped. He would be hunted. Elias and Sarai landed the shuttle on the main platform. Humans scurried about, repairing structures, tending to supplies, and glancing warily at the small ship that had arrived unexpectedly. One human, a young woman with dirt-streaked hair and a tired smile, approached. Commander Ward? Elias smiled faintly. Back in one piece, mostly. The woman's eyes widened. We thought you were lost. I was, Elias said softly, glancing at Sarai. But I wasn't alone. He gestured to Sarai, who stood quietly behind him. This is Sarai. She helped me survive. The humans stared at her, wary and curious. Elias's lips curved into a small grin. She's not human, but she understands what we are. And maybe she understands what makes us strong. In the days that followed, Elias regained his strength, working with the humans to repair defenses, share strategies, and rebuild what had been lost. Sarai learned quickly, studying their ways, absorbing the spirit of humanity she had seen in Elias. Every day, she witnessed resilience, courage, and creativity. She saw humans make choices not because they were commanded, but because they understood the value of life, the meaning of freedom, and the importance of will. And every day, she felt the spark of change within herself grow stronger. The Zathari did not attack immediately, but their presence was felt. Scouts patrolled nearby systems, searching for the rogue human and the alien who had defied them. Yet Elias and Sarai were ready. He had survived worse. She had grown stronger, guided by his spirit and determination. One evening, as the two of them looked out over the barren planet from the station's observation deck, Elias said softly, They think they can break us, but they don't know humans. They don't know what we're capable of. Sarai nodded. I thought I knew my people. I thought I understood strength. But I see now, strength is not control. Strength is will. Strength is choice. And you, humans, you awaken it in others. Elias smiled. Then maybe that's why we're still here. Not just to survive, but to change the galaxy's understanding of us. To make them see what humans really are. Sarai's eyes glimmered. And perhaps you have awakened something in me. Something more than duty or loyalty. Something alive. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. Then we face whatever comes next. Together. Months later, the Zathari scouts arrived. But they were met not by a single human, weak and trapped, but by a fortified outpost, a united team, and the spirit of a commander who refused to break. Sarai stood beside Elias, her hands glowing faintly, her eyes alive with warmth. The Zathari paused. They had studied humans for centuries. They had assumed superiority. They had assumed weakness. They had been wrong. Elias stepped forward, calm and resolute. You underestimated us, he said simply. Humans survive. Humans fight. Humans adapt, and we do not surrender, no matter how impossible the odds. Sarai joined him, standing tall. And strength is not in dominance or control, but in the will to protect, to endure, and to inspire. That is what humans, and some of us, possess. The Zathari hesitated. For the first time they felt uncertainty, a doubt that had no place in their doctrine. A human had survived. An alien had chosen to defy them. Together they had created something unstoppable. As the scouts withdrew, Elias and Sarai stood side by side. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, full of opportunity. The human commander smiled faintly. "They still don't understand us," he said softly. "They never will," Sarai replied, her golden eyes warm. Elias reached for her hand. "Then let's show them. Not through war, but through life. Through courage, through defiance, through spirit. Humanity survives and inspires." Sarai's fingers closed over his. "Then we will face the stars. Together." The shuttle hummed quietly in the background, the outpost alive with humans preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. And for the first time in her life, Sarai felt hope. Not for rules, not for orders, but for the chance to live, to fight, and to choose. Humans had survived because they refused to break. And in the process, they had awakened more than flesh. They had awakened hearts, courage, and the truth that even the smallest spark could ignite a galaxy.